Welcome back everyone to part 2 of the exciting tale of Sven the octopus.
It is so exciting, I can't wait to hear what happens next.
You know what happens next. You are Sven the octopus.
Oh yes, silly me.
So as we heard in our first part of the story, Sven was being really badly bullied because he only had 4 tentacles, not the usual 8, which of course was something that Sven could do nothing about.
I could do nothing whatsoever about it.
Nothing at all.
Mhm.
So therefore, shall we find out what happens in the second part of the story and if things get any better for Sven?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's do that then. So this is part 2 of the incredible tale of Sven the octopus. Now, when the sun sets in the sky, we might think of the night that follows it as dark. But do you know what? It rarely is. There's usually some pinprick stars or glowing moon or human-made lights such as lamps, fires or phones. There's no other dark, however, like the darkness of the ocean. Some parts of the deep are so far down as to be pitch black even in daytime.
Even in daytime, yes, I've heard of those places.
That's right. Well, Sven the octopus here, he liked the night because despite the fact he was bright orange, no one could see that he had only the 4 tentacles. So therefore the stinging name calling would stop, at least until sunrise, that is. That day had been a particularly hard one, with him being called human on many occasions. So much so that despite being exhausted, Sven struggled to get to sleep in his rocky crag that night. For this is a thing that I believe that most bullies do not understand about their bullying. Or at least I hope they don't understand it, because if they did know what they were doing, that would make their bullying even more evil. You see, when someone is bullied, the unkindness that they suffer lasts much longer than the cruel event itself. It stays in the victim's mind forever, and it's replayed in their mind like an annoying, cheesy advert continuously. So when Sven eventually nodded off, oh, he's nodded off already. Very good. When Sven eventually nodded off, he began dreaming a familiar nightmare where he was being pursued by the usual gang of name callers. In his dream, he made for the old shipwreck in hope that he would get there soon enough before the tentacled terrors, and then slip between the rotten planks and hide. However, it soon became clear in his dream that his 4 tentacles were no match for those who had the full set of 8, and he just couldn't propel himself through the water as fast as them. Now, when it looked like all was lost and that the bullies would catch him, a strange figure stepped out of the shadows and let Sven whoosh past. But the stranger stood still in the way of the bullies. The figure was dressed in a full-length oilskin coat, the kind that human fishermen often wore in the past. He had a wide brim leather hat with a red feather in its hatband. The brim was so wide that it completely hid the stranger's face in its shadow. He also wore a pair of mean-looking black thigh-length boots with pointed tips showing underneath the coat. And the last piece of clothing that Sven noticed was a buckskin glove that the stranger held up in front of him with the palm facing out, motioning to the bullies to stop. And they all did stop, in absolute terror. It was at that moment Sven woke up without warning. and he was very annoyed.
I was fuming.
You see, he was very annoyed because in his sleepiness, the dream still seemed very real to him. And he really wanted to find out who this mysterious human stranger was, and how he could breathe underwater, and what would happen next. He was so annoyed, in fact, that he skipped his breakfast, which I don't think you should ever do, in my opinion. But anyway, he then headed off to the old wreck. Sven knew he was being silly. He knew it had just been a dream after all, but it had seemed so real. And he knew that the only way to knock it out of his head was to visit the place that he dreamed about, the shipwreck. However, when he got there was nothing out of the ordinary. The shipwreck just lay there like a beached whale, bathed in the early morning sunlight from up above. And Sven was very disappointed, but not entirely surprised. I mean, had he really expected to come face to face with the strange human who had saved him in his dream? In his disappointment, he suddenly felt hungry.
I want chips.
No, you don't eat chips.
No, I don't eat chips.
No, he suddenly felt hungry and decided to search the inside of the wreck for a shellfish breakfast. As he entered into what had been the captain's cabin, his little octopus beak fell open in surprise, because during the night, part of the ceiling had given way and was now letting in a lot more light than usual. And so Sven could see something that he'd never noticed before. There in the corner was an old wooden sea chest. Was it a treasure chest? It was slightly open, and he was very curious to know. So he whooshed over to the corner and pushed the stiff old lid open.
Excuse me,
said a high-pitched voice. And now I'm going to get the owner of that high-pitched voice. Okay, Sven?
Okay.
Right, this is the owner of the voice. The owner of the voice swam aggressively into view. Here you are. It was a small, stripy, orange and white fish, and she looked a lot like a clownfish, but she couldn't have been, because they were nowhere near the coral reef.
No, nowhere at all. Nowhere near the coral reef.
Shall I tell them about you?
Yes, please.
Okay then, and she said,
really, it's customary to at least knock, and indeed to wait for an answer before you enter someone's house.
Said the little fish.
I'm sorry,
said Sven.
I didn't know it was somebody else's house. It looked like an old chest to me. Well, it was a chest once,
said the little fish.
You can tell by the junk that was left inside of it. Actually, seeing as you're here, you can do me a big favour and take all this stuff out. It's just in the way, and then my house will be like a palace.
Okay, said Sven, who had found the bustling little fish quite amusing.
My name is Sven. Pleased to meet you, Sven, said the fish. I am called Stripes on account of my stripes. Everyone else in my family was spotty. I got fed up with being teased, so I ran away from my shoal to live here on my own.
But Sven was barely listening, as Stripes had been talking. He had been unpacking the chest and laying the contents on the floor. As he did so, a look of utter astonishment was spreading across his face.
What's the matter?
Said Stripes.
All the things that are in your chest were also in my dream last night,
exclaimed Sven. And it was true. It was all there. The oilskin coat, the wide brim hat with a red feather, the mean and pointy boots, and even a pair of buckskin gloves. The only thing that was in the chest that wasn't in his dream was a large black book with a metal clasp.
Well, you can keep all of it for all I care,
said Stripes dismissively.
All I want is the space to practice my fish ballet in.
Don't be silly, said Sven. What's an octopus going to do with human clothes? Wear them?
Why not? It seems to me that you in particular have got just the right number of limbs for this particular outfit, if you don't mind me noticing.
Yes. So in a moment of madness, Sven tried on the clothes and looked at himself in a cracked mirror that was hanging on one wall. What he saw took his breath away. He no longer looked like an octopus. He looked entirely human. He was the mysterious stranger from his own dream.
Dun, 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 dun.
What was that?
That's the theme tune.
Doesn't seem much like a theme tune to me.
Critic.
Okay, well, that's the end of part 2 of the story, the incredible story of Sven the Octopus.
When can we hear part 3?
We can hear part 3 very, very soon. And as soon as we release it, which will probably be tomorrow.
Good.
Okay, so I hope I've left enough information there to keep you 100% interested in what's going to happen next.
I have.
You have. What, you were doing it all, were you?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we look forward to seeing you here again on Storytime Radio to hear part 3 of Sven, the incredible story of Sven the Octopus. See you soon.